We are in we're in a series on Joseph, and it's a great series. I hope you guys are doing your table talk, following along, reading it with each other, with your families, with your kids, and just, this is one of the greatest stories, man. This story is like, it should be, Mel Gibson needs to do, just like he did Passion of the Christ, he needs to do this on Joseph. It's all the things that we love, you know. It's scandal, it's drama, it's mystery, it's the guy who gets thrown into the pit, but then he rises, and then, it's just everything that we love in life. But the reason why I love Joseph so much is because the picture of his life is so much like the picture of each one of our lives. I talked a little bit about that last week, about pit theology. And pit theology is, the Vineyard's definitely adapted to, we agree with the pit theology. It's not all just prosperity. The Bible gives us people, God gave us people like Joseph and Abraham and Moses and David and all the disciples, and so that we can learn. And that we know, okay, if this is something that they're going to go through, more than likely 2016, nothing's changed. We're going to go through these same things, just it will be relevant to our culture. Obviously we're not going to stone people who have, affairs, or we're not going to nail people to the cross who have murdered someone or had theft in their life. Our culture is different. But the same sins and temptations apply to us. And today we're going to be talking about temptation. Now, before we jump in here with Joseph, let's remember where we left off with him. Does anybody remember where we left off last week? Where is he now at this state? He was sold into slavery. He ended up at Potiphar's house. Okay, this was like, a vice president. He's the general of all the armies. Potiphar was a really high up there dude. He had lots of power. He had lots of education. So Joseph, he could barely even speak their language. He had to learn their language. He had to learn their customs. He had to learn their culture. And he had to really change and learn and grow and adapt. And during this process, Potiphar saw something on Joseph. And hopefully you underline that. But he saw that the Lord, in verse, we're going to be in chapter 39, but in chapter 39, verse 2, the Lord was with Joseph. Verse 3, the Lord was with him. We're going to see it again and again through this story. The Lord's favor was on Joseph. The brothers, they tried to take his coat and they tried to kill him. And we talked about last week, someone can take your materialistic things, but they can't take God's purpose for your life. So we're going to be talking about temptation. And if I had time, I would have done this, but it's great. I was researching and I came across, I think it was like in 1960, they did this test, and these really smart people did this test with these children, and they tested how much they had willpower against instant gratification. Has anybody heard of the marshmallow test? Okay, all right, so I had never heard that. This is new to me. I never even knew that this, I'm totally going to do this with my kids. Even though I know nobody would make it, but here's the gist of it. Basically, they take a handful of kids, they set them in a room by themselves. They put a marshmallow in front of them. And here's the deal. They tell the kid, listen, if you can wait till I get back, which is, everyone did a little bit, let's say 10 minutes. If you can wait till I get back, I'm going to bring you another marshmallow if you don't eat that one. So if you don't eat that marshmallow, not only are you going to get to eat that marshmallow, but I'm going to bring you another one. And so the initial thought, most kids, their reaction was, awesome, I'm going for 2 marshmallows. So then the adult leaves the room and the kids, it's just them and the marshmallow. And the video is so great. And they time lapse it. So, but basically, long story short, at the end, they show all the different marshmallows. And not one of them in this one. There's some trials that some kids left it alone. But this one little girl, it was so cute. She kept looking at the marshmallow and she would slide it a couple inches over and then look away. And then she'd look back and she'd slide it even further away from her. And she'd look away. And then finally she just grabbed it back and she put it in her mouth. And then she realized what she did, and she spit it back out into the plate. And each kid went through these trials. The one little boy, he would pick little slivers, and he would rotate the marshmallow and pick little teeny slivers so that you couldn't see it all the way around the marshmallow. The one kid was sitting there, and he decided that he would bite half the marshmallow because he couldn't take it. So he took it and he just bit it. But they always realized after the bite, and so he started forming the marshmallow and growing it. You know how you can take the and he tried to create a marshmallow that looked like the same size as the original one. And it was so funny, kid after kid, they failed. So I Googled, and I'm like, I wonder if this test has ever been done on adults. And if I had time, I would totally do this test with all of you guys. I'd put you in each classroom by yourselves with videos, because 90% of us, and maybe marshmallow isn't our thing. Whatever your thing is. You put a hot slice of pepperoni pizza in front of me. I don't care about if you're bringing 2, 3, 4 more slices. There's no way that I would spend 10 minutes. I was trying to diet here a while back. This is a true story. And I try not to tell a lot of people I'm dieting because I always fail, and so I feel like an idiot. So I just tell a couple people that are really in my life, because I'm going to need their support. So I told my sister, who lives a mile down the road from me, and she happens to be here today, but I told her that, I'm back on the wagon, I'm back on the diet, and I was doing no carbs, because that tends to work the best for me. So I didn't want any bread, not that I didn't want it. I was saying no to bread and those kind of things. So we were going into town for something, and we had Kaibuki, who's a year and a half. She said, hey, swing by McDonald's and I need to get him a cheeseburger. And I was like, I just don't know. And she's like, you're fine. I'm not going to let you get anything. And I'm like, oh, gosh. I was like, I don't know if I can do it. And she's like, what is the big deal? Because, skinny people don't understand the challenge of a diet. They just don't get it, period. They look at you as so stupid, like, just don't eat it. Just go work out. Like, just get up in the morning and go jog. Like, they don't have anywhere to put it in their minds. And I'm pretty sure that's like a sin somewhere in the Bible of judgment. But, that's between you and God. So I go through the drive-thru and I get Buki a little Happy Meal. And she said, go get me a cheeseburger. And I said, I don't think so. And she goes, I can't have a cheeseburger because you're dieting? And I was like, I thought you were trying to support me. There's Book. See, Kai knows. There's Kai in the back right there. He knows what his mommy did to Aunt Kristy. So finally, after we're fighting in front of the drive-thru guy. And I'm like, no. And she's like, get me a cheeseburger. So she yells, orders herself a cheeseburger. And we get up to the front. And I get the order, I pass it back, and she opens it. And I don't know. I to this day, I think that they put some type of like crack at it, like crack in the McDonald's, because it sets off triggers, and that's what we're going to be talking about today is triggers. Because triggers, everybody has their different triggers, and maybe McDonald's disgusts you. You're probably not an American, and you definitely probably are like a vegan or something, or gluten-free, one of those weird things. But most of us love McDonald's. So she's eating this cheeseburger, and I am filled with anger. I am like, the whole car smells like it. And it looked like the best. You know how sometimes you get a cheeseburger and they're like, the bun's a little hard. And this one was like buttery bun, cheese dripping off of it. And I was so mad and angry. So I was like, let me get a little bite of that. And she's like, no, you're dieting. And I was like, I just want a bite. And she's like, no, I'm not giving you a bite. And so we get in a fight over it. I'm like, you're not my parent. She's like, I'm supporting you. I'm like, that's not supporting. Supporting would have been never getting the cheeseburger in the first place. That's supporting. So I stole her cheeseburger and I put it all in my mouth. She did. She offered me his apple slices. So I don't know what the point was. We all have our triggers, temptations. Food is one of mine. It is a huge temptation for me. And temptation goes from a level of like super small temptation, cheating on something, cheating on a test in middle school, or, or maybe cheating on your taxes, or, tempted to lie your way out of something, all the way to the big stuff that we're tempted to do. We're tempted to look at things that we shouldn't be looking at. We're tempted to make impure choices, sexual sin choices. We're tempted to flirt with the enemy. We're going to read about Joseph here. And I want to say this on the front end is not all. Sometimes you suffer for someone else's falling into someone else's temptation that they've given over to. Especially if you're married. You will pay the price. You and your spouse will pay the price in your marriage of the other person choosing to give into their temptation. On whatever level. Maybe it's a small level. Maybe you haven't tasted that large level. But I'm telling you, you will taste it on some level. Where your spouse, your wife, or your husband has given in to something that they shouldn't have. And it will greatly affect you. And let me just say, on the other side, from the person who has given into that temptation, whether you think it has or not, it will greatly affect you too. The thing with temptation is we don't typically process it out. Like the marshmallow with those kids, it's an instant gratification. We are hardwired from the beginning, Garden of Eden. Maybe for you it wasn't an apple. Whatever, put whatever you want. But from the beginning, we are hardwired to have instant gratification. And the devil, most people think the devil, he wants you to hate God. Yeah, I would say that's true, but greater than that is the devil wants you to forget God. That's really what he's after. It's way easier to accomplish. He could care less if you hate God. But if you can forget him, he's won a great victory in your life. So we're going to pick up. Joseph is living at Potiphar's house. At this time, he's learned their language. Potiphar's like, oh man, you are the guy. I see God's favor on you. I see God's hand. I'm going to put you in charge of everything in my house. You're in charge of my money. You're in charge of this. You're in charge of that. But don't touch my wife. That's his rule. Everything else he can have. Chapter 39. See, most of you guys, if you haven't read this story, you're assuming already that he does something with Potiphar's wife, right? Right? Because aren't we in this world? I mean, rightfully so. Oh, that's another sermon. But I'm just saying, there is a higher tendency for us to stereotype men as the cheaters, right? But when I've done enough counseling, especially with couples, I've done enough counseling that it may not look like the male sin, but women, we have our own whole set of sins. We get emotional fulfillment, which I would rank just as high as a guy getting physical fulfillment. So let's not, that's why I love this story. Joseph happens to be the good guy in this story. So let's read. So chapter 39, verse 6. So he left Joseph in care of everything he had. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Totally trust this guy. Now Joseph was well built and handsome. Sometimes I pray oh God, sometimes I wish I had really ugly children. Like and maybe I do, but you never think your own kids are ugly, so I don't know. My kids are all beautiful and awesome to me, but, maybe they are. But sometimes I wish I had that, like really, like my 17-year-old. Sometimes I wish she was kind of like overweight with glasses and like really into books and like that kind of like, oh, I would just die to have that. But she's drop dead gorgeous, and, because that comes with so much. I be careful. I'm not going there. Yes, I'm not going there, Chad. Don't worry. My husband's saying, be careful. He's such a good husband. Anyway, so this guy's, he's well built. He'd be like, the hard part is my dad has ruined every Hollywood hot guy there is out there because he finds this disgusting fact about him and he blabbers it all over. Like, Brad Pitt apparently does not like to shower. He's super, super dirty. So, when Brad Pitt gets brought up, he always throws in there, oh, well, he's so gross he doesn't brush his teeth or shower. So how good does he look now? Or someone like, whoever the Hollywood go-to guy is. Handsome, built. Well, that comes with, Ty, come here. Come up here. He's in the back showing his muscles saying, this is me. Okay, so this is my nephew, Ty. Okay, so let's just picture, this is Joseph, okay, right here. Put the guns out, Joseph. Put the guns. Handsome, well-built, athletic. I mean, he's just a really good-looking dude, okay? Now, unfortunately, you're going to have a hard road ahead of you. Because really good-looking dudes, the temptation is going to be far greater for you. You're going to have all the girls after you. You know that? Has it already happened? Mom's watching, so he can't say. But I know, like he's a handsome dude, and that comes with. Sorry. That comes with good stuff, but it also comes with battles, man. He's going to have to be so much stronger and say no to so much more temptation. So if you have a good-looking spouse, like, I always tell my kids, it's overrated. Marry someone ugly. It's so much easier. And train yourself to think they're handsome. I didn't do that. I married the handsome guy. But all right, give Ty a hand. Get out of here. So that's Joseph. He didn't choose to be handsome. That's how he was. He was handsome. Verse 7, and after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph. She said, come to bed with me. Come sleep with me. This is not like PG. This is like R-rated. So let your mind go there. This isn't like, come lay down, let's watch a movie. She was like going straight after. She was like Netflix and chill type thing. 2 people got that. You guys are too old. You got to get with the lingo. You knew it, right? Okay. 2 people. I have a 17-year-old. I got to stay up with the lingo. So she's like, I want to sleep with you. You're hot. You're in my house. I want to sleep with you. Verse 7, after a while, so she takes notice, verse 8. But what did Joseph do? Joseph refused. He refused. This is what? With me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in this house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you. Isn't it always the one thing? The one thing you're not allowed to do. The one thing you can't have. It's always. She had everything. This woman had everything. But the one thing she couldn't have. That's how we are. You can hide it. You can deny it. But we're all wired that way. When someone says, you can't have it. It's like with your kids. I don't even do it anymore, but if a movie's on, and I hope you do this with your kids. I hope they see their dad and their mom when a scene comes on that's inappropriate, fast forward, or at bare minimum, see you close your eyes. Even a makeout scene when your kids are little. And you ask our kids what we do. Close your eyes, close your eyes. But this is what I learned not to do, is not to say, when they're not paying attention to it, don't ever yell, don't look. Don't look. I mean, it's the very first thing they do is turn around and look. So I try never to say that because it's in us. We are hardwired that way. When my daughter broke her arm and my brother-in-law was carrying her through the house, it was a horrible fracture. A bone was popping out and her wrist was dangling on just skin. But my sister screamed out, Kristy, don't look. And still, I'm a grown-up. The first thing I did was look. And then went white and almost passed out. But it's like that's don't look. The enemy does that in your head all the time. Don't touch that. You can't have that. You can't taste that. It's like back to the diet thing, because it's just a good analogy to use, but with temptation. But sometimes, like, I thought I was getting away, like, on a diet when I would get really weak and someone would have something like a pizza or an ice cream. I'd be like, oh man. I found myself, like, I would take a bite of it and I'd chew it and then spit it in the trash. Like this, and I was like, wait, this is not, I'm not teaching myself just so I can have the taste of it. And that's what we do with temptation. If we could just have a taste of it, just a bite of it, I won't swallow it. I won't keep chewing on it. But all that is doing is giving yourself instant gratification. You're not teaching yourself how to say no. You're not teaching yourself how to have a strong will. You're not teaching yourself anything besides instant gratification. So this woman, she's going after Joseph. Joseph's reminding her, your husband has put me in charge. Your husband trusts me. Your husband trusts me. And the one thing I can't have is you. And I'm not going to lose that trust. There's nothing more attractive than a woman or a man who is completely loyal in a relationship. You can have hair growing out your ears, your nose, you can be overweight or whatever. You will always be attractive when you're a loyal person. It's up there in one of the greatest qualities. Loyalty. On both sides, as a woman, as a man, being faithful and loyal, nothing can sever that. It just makes you look like a Hollywood hot guy, hot woman. It's such a good thing to have, but you got to fight super hard for it. So, verse 10, and though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. One day he went into the house to attend to duties, and none of the house servants were inside. She caught him by the cloak and said, come to bed with me. But he left his cloak, which is his robe he was wearing. He left his robe in her hand and he ran. Circle that word. Out of the house. Ran. It's the only option. There's a slight window. Bryce, if you want to throw up 1 Corinthians 10:13, you got a slight window in temptation. God will always, he promises us. We'll read this verse together. This is his promise to us. He says, do you have that up there? Hang on, I can pull it up too. I just want to get the words. There we go. I speak to sensible people. Judge for yourself what I say. Oh, this isn't it. Hang on. No, it's 12 and 13. All right, I'll read it. Hang on. This is really important. This is one of those verses that you really need to memorize. 10, it's up there. Okay, so if you think you're standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. Go to the next one. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. That's a promise. He will provide a way out. It's usually a small window. That's your first point if you're following along is run, put your name in the blank. Put your first name in there. Run, Kristy, run. It's the best. One of my dear friends, he's a family counselor, and we were talking, and he said, before they get to me, my advice would be run. But usually when they're in my office, it's too late. They didn't run. But the next key, he goes, I could counsel, I think I've shared this with you, but I love it. I could counsel pretty much every single person and couple with 2 words. Stop it. I mean, it's that simple. But before we get there, you can stop it by running. Don't flirt with it. Don't talk your way out of it. Whatever the temptation is, whatever it is, you have a window from God. It's a promise, but take it. Because if you don't, it's quicksand. This is what Joseph, so we're going to finish the story and then I'll go back to it. Verse 13. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and run out of the house, she called her household servants. She screamed, "Look! This Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here and he slept with me. But I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left his robe beside me and ran out of the house." She kept the robe beside her until her master came home. Then she told him this story, that the Hebrew slave you brought us came to me to make sport of me. Basically, she's telling she was raped. She's crying wolf. She said, your servant that you picked, reminding him, he raped me. But as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. When his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me." He burned with anger. See, this is her lie we'll get to, but Joseph ran. As soon as she lured him in, and I'm sure this is a good-looking lady. Joseph's a single dude. He's a young single dude. He's got needs, It's not a unknown situation that you'll find yourself in as a single person, especially as a married person, because the enemy loves for the temptress, the woman or the man to put when you're emotionally needy or your marriage is on the rocks and the person just isn't cutting it for you or whatever, fill in the blanks, you're not feeling secure about yourself, you're not whatever it is. It's an instant gratification that will cost you a huge price. So run when God gives you that moment. Don't entertain it. Don't buy into it. Don't rationalize with it. And don't share your faith with it. There was a guy, he I won't name any names. You guys don't even know him. But anyways, there was an attractive woman, and she, people confuse God's hand on someone, God's favor on someone with them being attracted, but it's really, they're attracted to the anointing of God, not really the person. But anyways, this guy had this woman who was attracted to him, and so he decided to take her out to lunch and share his faith with her and why he would be saying no and putting up boundaries. Well, you can fill in the blank on how that went. It's never a good idea to share your faith. God is not interested in Joseph sharing his faith with this woman. He's interested in, I've given you a window, I've given you a split second, are you going to take it or you're not? That's what he's interested in. So never use faith. Don't use faith as an excuse, because God doesn't tell you to flirt with temptation. He tells you to flee from it. Here's your second point. Never regret telling the truth. Never regret telling the truth. I don't care if you lose your friends. I don't care if you lose your job. I don't care if you look stupid. I don't care if no one believes you. Joseph could have easily, we're going to read what happens to him. This lady makes this lie up. This lie. And this is what happens to Joseph. Verse 19, when the master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, this is what your servant did to me. Joseph's master took him, put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. So by doing the right thing, Joseph landed in prison. You know, that just doesn't seem right. That would be a person who could shake their fist at God and say, why? I don't get it. I want answers. Why is this happening? I do the right thing. I do the hard thing. I lose my job. I lose my favor. I lose everything I knew. And now I went from a pit to a prison. What are you doing, God? It never, ever will feel good when God allows a pit or a prison stop or a desert, whatever it is in your life. It's so easy to shake your fist. I might as well have done it. I should have just done it. How many times have you thought that? Maybe you haven't said it. Now, maybe it's not an affair. You know, this is an extreme thing, but it happens all the time. Especially with the internet and all the crap that goes on, and it's like you have to keep your door so tight. And people get accountability is a whole nother message, but if you don't have an accountability partner, dude, you need to get one, women or men. Get an accountant. Who's in your life? Who knows your struggles? Because it's not okay to, after you blow it, go, oh man. That's not what accountability is for. Accountability is for picking up the phone and saying, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I got myself in this predicament. And I'm entertaining this thought before you do it. So the person can help you run, can help you choose to run. But that's another, accountability is another. Before we even get there, we're just dealing with the temptation. So you say no, you do the right thing, and it lands you jobless. You're fired because you chose to do the right thing. You chose to have walls up. You chose not to flirt. You chose not to engage in things that you knew your heart was saying, this is not the right thing to do. Or maybe you're on Facebook and you accept that person that you just know you shouldn't have done. You shouldn't have accepted it. So you reject them. And they confront you and they're mad. And wow, I thought we were friends and I thought they did. You do the right thing and then something traumatic happens to you, or you're up against a fight, or you're up against a prison cell. Joseph has every right to be mad. But this is what he does. I believe it doesn't explain his moment when he's walking to the prison cell, but I can't imagine him going, most of the time, Potiphar, most of the time in this culture, what Joseph did, what should have happened to Joseph? Dead. He should have been dead. He should have been dead. So, a couple things, obviously, God has plans for him. But do you think that somewhere inside Potiphar, past his ego, past his pride that his wife wanted another dude, past that, do you think he could have thought it was a lie? It doesn't tell us, but I gotta believe somewhere in his gut check, he just thought something's not right with this. And he chose to put him in prison instead of killing him. I just choose to believe that. But while Joseph was in prison, let's read verse 21. Underline this, man. Remember verse 2, verse 3? Here we go again. What? Let's say it together. The Lord was with him. He showed him kindness. He granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for everything in there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because say it together, Lord was with Joseph. Gave him success in whatever he did. The enemy wants to say, man, if you choose not to bite, if you choose not to bite into that temptation, this is what's going to happen. You're going to lose this. You're going to risk this. But God's got so much, this, they can take, here's your third point, they can take your coat, but they can't take your favor. We said last week, they can take your coat. His brothers took his coat, but they couldn't take God's purpose and his mission for Joseph's life. The same for you. They can take your coat. The woman took his coat, slayed his character. But guess what? It will never take God's favor. Nobody can touch that. God is all over Joseph. And we're getting ready to go into the good stuff. Next week it gets so exciting. Things that happened years before, prophetic dreams are going to come alive. I have words that people have given me in my life. They're called prophetic words. I write them down. But at the time I got the word, I was, oh, okay. Now they make so much sense, and I just see them unfolding. Promises that God gave me when I was younger. I see them unfolding years later down the road. So people can take your coat, they can accuse you, they can slice and dice your character, but they cannot take God's favor on your life. But I tell you what I've seen before. I kind of think of God's favor as kind of his hand on you. But this is what I've seen with people when they've given into temptation. Whatever that is for you. Maybe that's pornography. Maybe that's an emotional, unhealthy relationship you're having with someone. Maybe that's like an eating disorder. Maybe that's like some type of child type, not physical abuse, but just like being really mean, tempted to be very mean to a kid. I don't know why I'm getting that sense, but if you've bitten into that, I tell you what, I've seen it over and over and over. I'm not saying God leaves you. Obviously, we have his forgiveness, his grace. If you want it, you got to be sorry from it. You have to ask for forgiveness. But when you're in it and you're not looking for that, you're not sorry. I've seen it in ministry. I've seen God kind of go, okay. You didn't take the window. And you're not just taking a bite of the marshmallow. You're chomping on it. And I just have seen it over and over. That's what God does. His favor's lifted. He done it in my life. When I've gone down a path I shouldn't have gone. I feel that you can see it on people. You can see the difference. I can see it in people's eyes. Like, oh man, you've gone too far down that road. But let me tell you something. I promise you, just like he gives you a window to run from it, he gives you a flippin' huge, what do you call the two doors that open? A slider, a living room slider to come back into his grace. He gives you a huge opening to say, chop it off. If you got to chop your hand with it, then chop it too. Chop it off and come back. Get a piece, come back into my favor on your life. Chop it off, whatever it is, whatever it takes. It'll be worth it, I promise you. It'll be worth it. I've seen marriages when they've exposed things and put it all on the table and said, this is as ugly as it gets and this is what it is. I've seen God pick it up, put it into the most beautiful pot I've ever seen. Broken pieces of clay. I've seen God rebuild into beautiful sculptures. But you got to root it out. You got to root it out. Joseph skipped right from this attack, assassination, right into God's favor. If he would have taken her up on it, I think he would have he would have, I won't say that his future wouldn't have happened, but I will say that he would have prolonged it. He would have prolonged it. God's favor. I think God would have just lifted up. All right, if you want to go down that road. So let's be a people that whatever it takes, we run. And if we're too far into it, whatever we take, we run back into God's forgiveness, his grace. God, help me. And then get someone in your life that's going to see you through it. You know, Chad and I, we both have people in our life that we're accountable to. People that I'm like, I can see myself struggling with this. Before I go, gosh, I totally blew it. Same for Chad. He's got people. We have people in our life. You better have someone in your life. Who's holding you accountable? Who knows what you're doing behind closed doors? Somebody better, because God does. Somebody better. Let them in. They just want to love you. There's no judgment. God's forgiveness and his grace is so good, man. But you got to want it. He knows the difference between being sorry, but I'm going to do this again tomorrow, and being sorry. God, I don't know how I'm going to stop, but you got to help me. I want out. I want out of this thing. I want back with your favor. I want back with your grace. I know it's I'm going to pray here in a second, and it's an intense message, and there's no way to get around it. But you know what? This is life. This is the life we live in. You are going to battle temptation every single day of your life. It started off with that. 2016, we are still going to be tempted by the ultimate tempter, who knows you better than anyone, who preys on your vulnerability, your insecurity. Oh, well, you know. That's another message. Let's pray. Lord, I know this is tough, Lord, but you know what? It's your truth. Lord, your promise is that you will give us a way out every time. Lord, help us to use courage to take it. Lord, thank you that we can, if we've blown it, Lord, that we can come back and say, Lord, just wash me. Forgive me. I'm so sorry. It's wrecking you more than you possibly can ever think. You think you're managing it. I don't know who I'm talking to. You know who I'm talking to. You think you're managing it. It is managing you. said, just root it out, man. Root it out. What he has is so much better, man. His love, his purity, his intimacy, his future, his favor. It's so much better. Lord, I pray that you just give courage. If our prayer team can come to the cross, I just feel like this is a great opportunity. You know, part of the run from the temptation could be literally a walk to the front to get prayer. It's that window where you know you need someone to agree with you in prayer. And maybe it's little. It doesn't have to be some big, great temptation. And maybe it's a little temptation. Whatever it is, the enemy's tempting you to bite into. You just need someone to agree, stand with you, like we sung in that song. Sometimes this God and this all I can do is stand. So Lord, give courage to the people who they just need a helping hand from you. Thank you that you love us, and we read these stories, Lord, these great heroes. You know, Joseph he wasn't perfect, but we get to use his life as an example. That we're going to be in pits and we're going to be in prisons. We're going to have moments in our life where we can shake our fist at God. But if we can keep our eyes on Jesus and know that I could be dead, God has plans. He's got a mission, a purpose, and his favor is on me, and I'm going to keep walking. Why don't you guys stand up? Lord, so we just thank you for today. I just pray a blessing on your people, Lord. Help us to have a good week. And Lord, just give courage to those who just need a word from you. Or maybe someone just to stand with them. Give them your boldness to come to the front and get prayer today. And we love you, Lord. We thank you for your goodness. And all God's people said, amen.